My girlfriend became disillusioned with me and died. All she left behind was a tattered diary. It turned out she had been keeping records of her love for me for 3 years. When I was 18, I was sure that my life was over. I was loved madly, but Bai Xiaoxu died. She left just when I was at my most vile and selfish, leaving me alone in the small town of Ningning. I always thought that Bai Xiaoxu was just a lonely artist. I took her under my wing, replacing her sister, perhaps out of guilt or a momentary pity. Gradually, she began to feel something more for me, but because of my coldness, she remained in deep loneliness. I bullied her, oblivious to her gentleness and completely unaware of the depth of her feelings for me. At that time, I was obsessed only with Lin Yuking's jokes. Lin Yuking was an unattainable white moonlight for me, and whenever she rejected my advances, I took out my pent-up anger on Bai Xiaoxu. Later, she confessed her love to me, but I just coldly threw it in her face that she would never be comparable to Lin Yuking. I called her worthless and empty, giving her no hope of reciprocity. She ended up throwing herself off a high-rise building. The last lines in her diary were terrifying. "Farewell, brother, if life were to repeat itself, I hope the person I meet and save isn't you." Reading these words, written in her hand, I couldn't hold back my tears. What did I miss? I'll never hear her voice again. Her usual "welcome home, brother," which I used to get tired of. Now it seems unbearably desirable and impossible. That's just the way people are. We never appreciate what we have until we lose it forever. I felt this heavy guilt for 10 long years. All these years, I haven't gotten close to anyone or tried to build new relationships. 10 years later, I had achieved success and became the head of the company, but at that moment, standing on the edge, I did not hesitate. I jumped down. There was a dull slam of flesh against the ground, a sharp ringing in my ears, and everything plunged into darkness. But death wasn't the end. In a dark alley next to me, I heard a girl crying, and I heard a painfully familiar voice. My eyes widened in shock. I had been reborn, and at that very moment, seeing that girl screaming in helplessness, I, without thinking, rushed into the alley and saw a man in black. I realized I had to save her. I wasn't going to let anyone hurt her. After all, I was confident in my own abilities. The criminal clearly did not expect intervention, realizing that the situation was getting out of control. He saw a very young girl and, deciding not to stand on ceremony, drew his dagger. She looked up at him. Fear was evident in her eyes, but she still hoped for salvation. That man's actions had been decisive. He swung the dagger, intending to plunge it straight into the heart, but then I appeared. "Stop!" I didn't wait, but simply knocked him down with a powerful kick. I've been doing taekwondo since childhood. The blow was precise and powerful. The criminal was thrown 5 meters and immediately lost consciousness. I only said briefly, "You're not human." At that moment, the wounded girl looked at me, her savior. It was the city of Shangyi. She, covered in blood, clearly didn't expect me to come to her aid. She exhaled with difficulty. "Go away, you don't need to save me." I was completely confused. Why was she saying that? But I had no time for questions. Her condition was critical. She was covered in blood. I immediately called an ambulance and my personal driver. "Wei Yang, you finally remembered about me." My driver on the phone was almost crying with joy. Despite my high salary, I had been acting like a complete idiot for a long time. I'd deliberately distanced myself from everyone, living in a fog, despising my life. But now, hearing his voice, I was on the verge of tears myself, but I had no time to talk. "Drive faster. If you're late, you're fired," I snapped, and he immediately understood the seriousness of the situation. The car arrived exactly on time. I took Bai Xiaoxu to the hospital. Although this had happened before in my previous life, this time I supervised every detail right from the intensive care unit. The anxiety in my chest was almost palpable. "Yi Fan, don't be an idiot this time," I scolded myself. "This girl needs to live. In my next life, I should be a dog myself, not a human, for the way I acted before." The doctor finally left. I rushed to him. "Doctor, how is she?" He looked carefully at the examination results. I confirmed that I was a member of the family, firmly resolved to care for her for the rest of my life. The doctor said there were many external wounds, but it's not fatal. There's significant blood loss and shock, but she'll come around soon. We can transfer her to a regular ward. "Okay," I replied. "Prepare the best VIP ward for her." The doctor examined the patient's head with a puzzled look. The lighting in the room seemed too dim to me. This was definitely the best VIP room, more like a room in an expensive hotel. By evening, I had appreciated the amenities: a private bathroom, a TV, and a spacious room with 2 large beds. Several hours passed. Bai Xiaoxu lay on the bed, his beautiful eyes calmly staring at the television. I could see he didn't understand why I continued to help him. After all, I'd never shown him any love. Why are you doing this? Are you bored? His gaze said. I had just opened the door to the ward when I was immediately met with Bai Xiaoxu's cold, almost dead gaze. He looked at me with such frightening calm, as if he were a man about to give up his life. I felt uneasy. Maybe I should stay away. He bit his lip. There was irritation in his voice. What difference does it make to you what I look like? I sat down on the edge of his bed. I was confused by the way Bai Xiaoxu acted differently than in his previous life. Shouldn't he be grateful for being saved? Does reincarnation really change one's character? But I didn't think long. If it was him, then who, if not me, should save him? Are you expecting the Jade Emperor to come down and help? I snapped. Bai Xiaoxu was at a loss for words. He was angry. I don't need your help, he snapped, but I ignored it. I looked at his bruised skin. Bai Xiaoxu had a rare, sickly pallor. The blood on the wounds seemed unnaturally scarlet against the white skin. My heart suddenly sank with pain. I carefully took his hand, trying to speak softly. Does it hurt? Bai Xiaoxu's face flushed as if on fire. Why did he seem so different? His tone had softened, his movements more careful, completely different from yesterday, but he still tried to resist. Let me go. What difference does it make to you whether I'm in pain or not? He tried to pull his hand away. But he had just come out of intensive care, and he didn't have the strength to make even a weak gesture, let alone break free from the man's grip. Bai Xiaoxu looked at me seriously. I'll tell you it hurts. Do you believe me? His words sounded strange. He looked straight at me, and there was such seriousness in his eyes that I believed he wasn't lying, even though we didn't really know each other. Who are you trying to lie to? Rip out my tongue if you want, but just let me go, he said. I obeyed and released his fingers. I continued to sit next to him, watching him. The soft hair on the back of his head was slightly disheveled. A straight nose, lips dry from lack of moisture, yet still alluring. Those sexy, golden-hued eyes. Apparently, my strange behavior was confusing him. The hospital gown did little to conceal his figure, and for the first time in a long time, I really looked at him. Only now do I realize what a girl or person I missed out on. The irony is, I once said that Bai Xiaoxu would never compare to Lin Yuqing. These words cut him to the core, which is why he decided to take that desperate step. I think this was his last life. This was not a manly act. My heart felt like it had been pierced by knives. Yi Fan, you behaved worse than a dog, I scolded myself. Now I wanted only one thing, to protect the man in front of me. I won't let him get hurt again. Bai Xiaoxu was watching me the whole time. He looked confused and turned away. Can you stop looking at me? He whispered. I tried to find the words to somehow touch him, but being a typical boor, accustomed in a past life only to rudeness, I could only squeeze out ridiculous phrases. Good Yi Fan. Okay, I replied, that's enough. He heard this and seemed to withdraw into himself even more. There was indifference in his heart. It seemed he remained the same as before and did not love me at all. I've been reborn, don't dwell on the past, I told myself. I just need to wait until he gets better and then go away and leave him alone. Everything that happened was my doing. Silence fell over the room. This awkwardness irritated me. I desperately tried to find a topic of conversation just to prolong the time spent with him and smiled uncertainly. Maybe I should turn on something on TV. You're having trouble moving, I'll help, I suggested. He immediately regretted that I was here. I don't want to, don't be angry, just leave me. Are you hungry? Should I bring you some food? No, I'm not hungry. Please don't bother me, he begged, but I wasn't about to give in. I believed that persistence would help. Does your leg hurt? Let me help you, stretch it out. He responded coldly, and any attempts I made to start a dialogue were dashed by his alienation. I felt like an outcast. What could I do to make him stop looking at me like that? My gaze fell on his feet. I walked over and, as if finding an excuse, reached for the blanket to cover his legs. My little finger accidentally touched his skin. His heart skipped a beat. What are you doing? He winced. He turned his head, then turned away again, but his leg remained on top of the blanket. He looked at me suspiciously, trying to figure out if I was being sincere. I felt my face flush. Nothing, I said quietly. I just saw that my leg was open and I was afraid that you'd catch a cold. He looked at me and his face also turned slightly pink. Why on earth do you care about me? He said coldly, turning away again and trying to sit up, struggling with himself. But I saw that this Yi Fan was no longer like the one I used to be, and Bai Xiaoxu was also starting to feel it. My god, is he really hungry? I wondered if Bai Zioxu wanted me to buy him food, but he had saved himself. How can he ask me for anything after everything that happened? On the other hand, it's a good sign. In my past life, I left him alone and he was literally fading away before my eyes. Let's forget the grudges, I have to take care of him. Bai Zioxu apparently overcame his composure and decided to ask me for food, but when he turned around, he found the room empty. I had vanished without a trace, and he only smiled bitterly at his own expectations. Really, how could I, the person who had previously deceived him, suddenly become his support? Bai Zioxu lay on the bed, lost in gloomy thoughts. He felt a slight pain in his chest, and the next second he was shaken by a fit of coughing. At that moment, I carefully opened the door. In my hands, I had a bowl of rice, a large plate of fried eggs in tomato sauce, and hot porridge. His gaze immediately focused on me. His eyelashes fluttered slightly. "Did you go out for food? I heard you sigh heavily and guessed you were hungry," I replied. I was afraid that he would be stubborn again, so I immediately went to the bed with a tray. I myself didn't expect that I would try so hard for him. It seemed I'd misunderstood him, and now I was consumed with guilt. Despite his earlier resistance, this time he reluctantly thanked me. I was amazed. How could Bai Zioxu be so handsome even when he was embarrassed? I wanted to spoon-feed him, little by little. But he looked at me carefully. "I don't need you to feed me. I can manage on my own." I wanted to help, but he had already put the plate on the table next to him. Leaning his shoulder on the bed, he confidently picked up his chopsticks and began eating with one hand. My words caught in my throat. He really had managed it all on his own. I could only watch him. When he finished, I took out a napkin. "Let me wipe your mouths." "No, no need, I'll do it myself." He took the paper from me, wiped himself, and threw it in the trash. There was still a sense of distance between us. I took out the book I'd bought with my meal and began reading. Bai Zioxu watched me. I saw curiosity in his eyes. He assumed I'd always hated studying, so this change puzzled him. "What are you reading?" he asked. I nodded, unsure of what to say. It was a secret. I deliberately put the book back on the shelf, but he managed to notice the title. I didn't explain what I meant. It was getting dark. Tomorrow is Monday. I have to go to school, and he's still here. I looked at the dark sky outside the window. Is he really going to stay? Deep down, he may have wanted to be alone, but I couldn't just leave. Even he knew I wasn't the best student. "Maybe you just want to go to school to see the local beauty," I asked jokingly. "Do you have to leave in the dark like this? And what makes you think you can talk to me like that? It's disrespectful," Bai Zioxu said, leaning against the window. We were dangerously close to each other. He turned his head and his piercing eyes met mine. I smiled. "Shouldn't people look at me more often since I'm so cute?" Bai Zioxu was stunned by my impudence. "Are you praising yourself? I can handle it myself. You don't need to worry about me. That makes me weak," he said angrily, not wanting to get closer. He tried to appear cold, but I couldn't resist touching his head. "Of course I'll stay here until you're discharged. After all, saving such beautiful people is my main goal." I quoted a line from the book, feeling foolish. Bai Zioxu clearly hadn't expected that from me. "Don't touch me. Tomorrow is Monday. Go to school. I don't care who you are," he snapped. I squatted down in front of him and started spouting nonsense with the utmost seriousness. "Saving lives is a serious matter, just like studying. I can't leave you here until you're discharged." "I'm in 3rd grade. I still have time to catch up on the lessons I missed," I added. Bai Zioxu froze. "Are you sure you're not just making excuses?" he asked, the lamplight reflecting off his damp hair. I didn't understand why I'd become like this. "I told you I wouldn't leave you. I hate you, okay?" I blurted out, not knowing why. His face flushed. I remembered what I'd read in the book and leaned closer again, feeling his breath touch my face. "I have a cold character. I don't know how to be kind. But if I choose someone, I won't back down," I said, realizing I was spouting nonsense from a book. The book may have been stupid, but it caused Bai Zioxu to experience a storm of emotions, and his cheeks turned as red as cherries. He buried his face in the blanket. "Yi Fan, how can you say such a thing? You've changed completely. You were different in your previous life." His voice trembled. He remembered me as completely different, and these changes frightened and intrigued him at the same time. I watched him hide under the blanket and realized that he was still the same person, just hiding behind the armor. "I'm not that cold," I thought. "I just find it funny." I didn't remember him like this as a child. Perhaps I was too preoccupied with myself in my past life. I took him for granted, not even thinking that he was my age and still in school. A feeling of guilt washed over me with renewed vigor. I owe this man a lot and must make up for all my past mistakes. I looked at the small figure in the blanket, feeling a sudden tenderness. By Zyoksu, are you really in 3rd grade? I asked. He slowly emerged from under the blanket, his gaze softening. Yes, why are you interested in this? Then, how about transferring to my school? I blurted out, and I could tell from his face that the offer had taken him by surprise. She wasn't even surprised. By the way, I'm seriously interested in natural sciences. Then you could help me with my studies, she replied. But how do you know I'm a science major? I looked at her carefully and added sincerely, you just look amazing. She chuckled, I'm sure you have a flexible mind. People like that usually gravitate towards science. Bai Zyoksu clearly didn't expect such a compliment from me. Sounds logical, I agreed. But once you think about it, you realize there's a hole here. What's the connection between beauty and intelligence? I remembered Yi Fan's article from earlier. Yes, Yi Fan was no longer the same. It was as if he had become a different person. Even his leather jacket seemed alien, as if he were anyone but who he was. Bai Zyoksu gently touched my shoulder. I shook my head thoughtfully and said slowly, it's not enough. I need to pay for my education, and you basically saved my life. I owe you so much I can't exploit you anymore, she muttered. However, I had already decided that I would leave soon, and it didn't matter how much I had changed since the transformation. But surely that girl Lin Yukin must still be in her heart. I Bai Zyoksu am also proud. I don't want to intrude. Hearing this, I felt a strange pain in my chest. I owe you a lot, I said, but how could I explain to her how much I really owed? Was it really about money? I had plenty. I lay on the bed and looked at her. Warmth flickered in my eyes. Snow White, do you really think I didn't raise you well enough? I frowned, keeping a few centimeters away. You're joking, right, Yi Fan? She asked. She was sure I was joking. Aren't you in love with Lin Yukin? Her gaze flickered. Do you really think I'll believe you if you look me straight in the eye? My gaze became extremely serious. Ziozu, you have to let me take care of you. No, that's not what I meant, she replied, confused. Yes, I just want to be polite. My face twitched slightly. How does that make her feel? It sounds like I'm being deadly serious. I shook my head. I want to be kind to you, it's not what you think. Bai Zyoksu looked at me with obvious fear. There was no point in explaining anything, it all seemed so absurd. Indeed, Yi Fan always thinks he's irresistible. I was completely baffled. Why is Bai Zyoksu's life so complicated? Well, we'll just deal with these problems as they arise. After all, this girl has quite the temper. It's fine, I said. Lying on the bed, I waited for Bai Zyoksu to fall asleep. She clearly didn't expect such words from me. I have to protect her until dawn. She can't leave. I need to get ready for school tomorrow to meet Lin Yukin. She clutched the blanket in her hands. Why was she so shocked by the sudden change in me? She seemed to feel better. By dawn, when the first rays of the sun touched the horizon, I was no longer asleep. Wei peered into the room, shining her flashlight. I was already awake, but Bai Zyoksu was still not there. She stared intently at my bed. I watched her sleep and couldn't help but smile. Even in my sleep, I continued to smile. I must have had a good dream. But what kind of dream could I have? Probably something about Lin Yukin. After all, she's not a bad girl. But how could she love someone like me? This life only lasts 2 days. How can I like myself? At worst, it's just a misunderstanding about my skin color. Bai Zyoksu, thinking it was all a dream, turned away. Meanwhile, the homeroom teacher. He sat on the stage with his legs spread wide. When the headman Su Yuan stood up, he stood up too. Reporting to Principal Yan Jai, Yi Fan hasn't shown up at school for a whole month. What should I do? Yi Fan didn't come to school. This news sounded like a death sentence for the entire class. It was a sensation that instantly spread throughout the school. Everyone knew one thing: Yi Fan was one of the 9 masters. His only ideal was Lin Yukin, the school flower. He never left her side. Everyone had grown accustomed to him constantly declaring his love for her, knowing he would be rejected no matter what. The only thing that drew ridicule was the way Lin Yukin rejected him every time. This stain on Yi Fan's reputation became the talk of the town. Lin Yukin, sitting at the front of the class, raised her eyebrows slightly. Her beautiful eyes stared into space. Maybe he was in an accident. Did he really end up in the hospital? She heard his confessions every day. This always irritated me, but strangely, Yi Fan didn't confess today. I didn't even see him. Instead of the expected calm, I felt a strange uneasiness. She shook her head vigorously. What am I waiting for? She thought. Why did she even care? Lin Yukin stared back at her textbook, but thoughts of Yifan wouldn't leave her. Her deskmate noticed her friend's strange behavior. I don't care, why isn't Yifan here today? He's usually so noisy, but today it's quiet. Yukin, you don't like Yifan, do you? She asked. How is this possible? How can I like him, that bastard who only knows how to fight? Lin Yukin replied, although her reaction was far too strong. I believed her words, it seemed true. Yifan had confessed to her so many times, and she had never given a final, cold refusal. They had known each other for a very long time. Naturally, Lin Yukin would have preferred a man with high status and education. She knew her standards were too high. So she studied hard. Yifan will be #1 in the science department, although in the future I'll marry someone else even if he's handsome. It was a good combination, but his research and his simple style of dress weren't up to Yukin's standards. She sighed heavily and shook her head. Yifan was devoted to her, and it was evident in every glance he gave her. Who could resist such persistence? Confess every day, even though Lin Yukin rejects you hundreds of times, you still stand your ground. Besides, Yifan is so damn handsome. If I were her, I would have agreed long ago. Meanwhile, Yi Yun, busy with company affairs. The homeroom teacher called. Hello, what's wrong with Yifan? He asked. He didn't come today, maybe he was in an accident. Hearing this, Yi Yun immediately burst into laughter. Who are you cursing? Don't you dare say such things. The class teacher began to justify himself. This is the first time he hasn't come, so I assumed the worst. After all, he is your brother. My brother is a homeboy, he's probably just sleeping, he snapped. I'm just asking, why didn't he come? Yang Jai was clearly afraid of the Yi family's wrath, as Yifan's father was a shareholder in the school. You don't have to ask whether he's coming or not. I was really angry at Yi Yun for making a mountain out of a molehill. My brother couldn't have been in an accident, right? I was worried. I said I'd call him myself. The assistant transferred the call. The line rang. I woke up from a sweet dream and struggled to open my eyes. Pick up the phone, Stinky. Do you even realize you're in high school? I shouldn't study seriously, everything's ruined anyway, right? I said, and on the other end of the line I heard a rustling sound, like someone was rummaging around in the dark. I opened my eyes. Dad, what are you even talking about? Where did you assign me? You used to be the one who slacked off on school, but at least you studied until late at night. And now you're lecturing me, my father pressed. No, that won't do. Do you still see me as the kind of person who easily loses his head, otherwise? You fail your exams every time, and now you're going to teach your father a lesson? The man's voice sounded cold and resentful. I collected my thoughts. I explained to my father that I helped a girl who was injured on the road and took her to the hospital for treatment. There was no one around, so I stayed with her. After all, you have to see things through to the end. You taught me that yourself since childhood. My words reached Bai Xiaoxu's ears. She stood opposite me, and I could see the light from the hallway reflected in her eyes. It seemed she had come here simply to be in silence. Stay here and get better. I still think too much about others, I said. She clutched the edge of the blanket tighter. She curled up, trying to hide under the blanket. Apparently, it made her feel more comfortable. The phone, judging by everything, had been turned off for a long time. It seems my father has already realized that I've changed. Why did I suddenly start speaking so fluently? It's not just about the words. Even my tone became softer, not as harsh as before. Before that, my father and I were always fighting. Why is he so calm today? There's even a hint of provocation in his voice. Something's wrong here. A guy like me was definitely supposed to change. I explained the situation to him. Dad, people grow up. With time, you become more reasonable and calm. Your son will definitely change. Having said that, I felt a pang of guilt. My father had managed a huge holding company his entire life. At 50, he was already half gray, and it couldn't be said that it was from too much rest. You could say he was always angry with me. If it weren't for my character, my father could have lived a much calmer and longer life. Yi Yun was filled with doubt. Had his son really been hit by a car? No, he needed to proceed cautiously, gradually discovering how much I had changed. Save a man? Really? Seeing that I had changed, my father, accustomed to the harshness of business, showed a modicum of mercy and decided to come to the hospital to see that very girl. I was speechless. My father wants to visit Bai Xiaoxu in person. Although he treated her well in his previous life, he didn't know she loved me, considering her merely a housekeeper. What if he finds out about her feelings? I hesitated but nodded anyway. After all, they were bound to meet sooner or later. Better now than later, I'll check my father's reaction at the same time. Xiao Zu's head was completely hidden under the blanket. Is Dad coming? I put the phone down and looked at the bed again. And I saw that she had wrapped herself up as if she was going to suffocate there. I was shocked. Hey, the temperature in the room is fine, you won't suffocate. Don't take that risk. I worried and carefully lifted the edge of the blanket. Bai Xiaoxu didn't know what to do. She pretended to be asleep, closing her eyes. Yi Fan, he won't be against me, right? Flashed through her mind. Stick your head out, I don't need you to choke, I said. She kept her eyes closed. She felt my intense gaze, which sent warmth through her body. I took advantage of the fact that she was supposedly asleep and looked at her. Bai Xiaoxu's face turned even pinker than usual. Her white skin looked incredibly soft. I desperately wanted to touch her cheek, but I didn't dare, we'd only just met. It seemed like I'd always been cold, and then there was such a sudden change. Maybe this was all a consequence of the transformation, and then an idea occurred to me. I turned around, picked up my pen and notebook. Bai Xiaoxu opened her eyes slightly, watching me write something intently. I felt embarrassed that she saw my notes, but I simply put the pen away. My memory is excellent now. I wrote down everything I remembered about her, her birth date, her hobbies. After a while, I couldn't help but smile. Xiaozu saw my smile. Yifan's heart, no, my heart sank. Was I really happy about such things? I should feed her after she wakes up. I went and bought a glass of black rice milk. When I returned, I realized she was no longer pretending to be asleep. She opened her eyes and looked at me. Are you awake? I bought you black rice milk, I know you like it. I handed her the warm drink. She clearly didn't expect me to take care of her food. She was deeply touched. Taking the glass, she whispered, "Thank you." I felt embarrassed. "You're welcome. You're not feeling well and need to get better. By the way, your father will be here soon." Yi Yun's voice was already coming from the corridor. I nodded to Bai Xiaoxu. "Make yourself comfortable," I said, opening the door for my father. Yi Yun was silent at that moment. He seemed to be holding back his emotions. "Father's just worried that something happened to you," I thought. Yi Yun entered the room. He looked at Bai Xiaoxu lying on the bed. She saw Yi Yun. She tried to stand up to greet him, but her voice trembled. Yi Yun immediately raised his hand. "Your body is still weak, lie down, there's no need to get up." Yi Yun had a cold, business shark-like air about him, but deep down I could sense his uneasiness. "Don't be afraid, that's just how he is," I said, seeing Xiao Zu's nervousness. But I didn't expect her to point to me. He is a very kind person. How would she know? It's their first meeting. "Your son is always arguing with me like a thorn in my side. I didn't expect him to be so kind," Yi Yun muttered, clearly puzzled by my new behavior. I chuckled. It was true, I didn't even know who I was. This was the complete opposite of what Yi Yun expected to hear, though he was clearly impressed by the change. "This guy's not himself. When did you learn to speak so beautifully? Girl, did he ever bully you here?" Father eyed Bai Xiaoxu suspiciously. "Oh no, Yi Fan saved me and got me into the VIP room. He was concerned about my condition, looked after me, and even bought me some black rice milk. He's a very kind man." Bai Xiaoxu praised me as if I were a saint. I was unaccustomed to hearing this. I usually acted quite differently. How unexpected. But in fact, she said it intentionally, knowing full well what she was doing. Yi Yun's face, which had initially expressed stern restraint, gradually began to show approval. The situation was clearly changing for the better. My father is an old-school man, accustomed to managing huge corporations. His son, who had previously been nothing but a thorn in his side, suddenly behaved better than expected. This was something new for him. "Why has he changed so much?" Yi Yun was clearly puzzled. I remembered how, as a child, he would pick me up, and I, the stubborn little one, was always asking for trouble. "Yi Fan, come outside with me." My father's face suddenly became serious. I asked, "What's wrong, Dad?" His appearance was strange. My father wanted to say something, and I obediently followed him into the hallway. "Dad, why did you call me?" "You've become so good, don't be so arrogant. You didn't even visit your father when he was in trouble, and now you're so concerned about a girl, it's ridiculous." Yi Yun was truly angry. In his previous life, he had been a business shark, and his greed was legendary. I suddenly understood why Bai Xiaoxu had said those words. She knew he would react that way. "Dad, I'm not plotting, I'm just trying to learn. You don't want me to completely fail as a student, do you?" "Training is important." I began to look for excuses. "I'm doing this so that I can become a worthy successor and effectively manage the company in the future. Isn't that in your best interests?" Yi Yun's expression grew even gloomier. Do you think that if my father's life is more important than my studies, then when I die, you'll simply abandon our common cause? He asked. I heard bitterness in his voice. My face twisted in confusion. I shook my head. No, Dad, that's not what I meant at all. No. You're fussing over your new friend. You bought her dinner, but you haven't found time for your father. I find it funny to look at you. I was completely confused. Oh no, it's all gone, I thought. There was no point in explaining. My father was angry with me. Before, I would have simply responded to his attacks rudely. Today's reprimand was strange, and I behaved in a way that was out of character for me. It truly was abnormal. Ye fans, you like that girl in the ward, right? Father hit the nail on the head. How can I explain this to my father? I've only known Bai Zioxu for a day. If I confess my feelings, he'll think I'm crazy, so I said. Her name is Bai Zioxu. Her family abandoned her and she found herself in trouble. I was just passing by and saved her. She's still a minor and I need to study for my college entrance exams. I don't have any ulterior motives, I just feel sorry for her, and Dad, you saw it yourself, she's a very good person. I watched my father's reaction carefully. I noticed her eyes tremble and added, she's in such a terrible situation that she can't even work properly. I was thinking, maybe I should help her with her education, take her under my guardianship. I was surprised at my own courage. My father eyed me suspiciously. He'd arrived unannounced to check on me, and I was expected to provide for myself, not engage in charity work. He felt ashamed of my softness. Then I played my last trump card. I've made inquiries. She's very knowledgeable about science. She'll study natural science with me. It's a win-win strategy for both of us. Yi Yun finally cast aside his doubts. Don't be such a dreamer. Learn to cook for yourself. Don't push the chores onto a girl. By the time you graduate, you should be able to survive in any conditions. In the ward, Bai Zioxu walked to the door, listening to our conversation. Hearing Yi Fan's words, she felt a sharp pain in her heart. Could it be that he did all this out of pure rationality? It turns out that everything was planned. Yi Fan, why are you so cold? The corners of her eyes moistened. She walked slowly back to the bed, each step seeming unbearably heavy. I'll call you from school. When you get back, we'll have to catch up, Yi Yun said. It was a compromise. I replied, Dad, I'll definitely try. Will I be able to improve my studies if Zioxu helps me? I thought as I watched my father leave. I felt sad. My father never treated me badly. He even bought me an apartment for my studies. But I was a rebel and always argued with him. I dreamed of going to a prestigious university, and now that I think about it, it opens up a much bigger picture. But right now, the most important thing is to take care of the one who will become my support. I walked into the room and saw milk and black rice on the table. She turned away, her body tense. I frowned. What's wrong with you, Bai Zioxu? Why didn't you finish your milk? I asked. I felt a strange bitterness and resentment in her voice when she answered. She stood by the window, her eyes and nose red from tears. She hid her hands under the blanket, but I saw her pained gaze. This insult hurt me deeply. I felt guilty. Crouching down next to her bed, I said quietly and tenderly, I didn't mean to hurt you, don't cry. Don't talk nonsense, she said, turning away. You're all the same, you say nice things, but you don't care about other people's feelings. Bai Zioxu was beside herself. In a fit of emotion, she accidentally touched the catheter in her arm. I got scared and immediately called the doctor. While the doctor adjusted the needle, I stayed by her side, genuinely worried. She watched my face and saw that my feelings were genuine. She realized I was genuinely worried. Even if I talked about studying and strategy, it was just a cover for my concern. Businessmen think differently, but why would I worry so much about her if I didn't value her? After the transformation, I changed, but maybe some things remained the same. She didn't know how to communicate with me now. I just waited for the doctor to finish. I looked at her with a slight smile. How old are you to be doing this to yourself? Be more careful next time or I'll have to scold you. My voice was gentle, without a hint of reproach. Bai Zioxu calmed down a little. She simply nodded, and the resentment in her eyes began to melt away. Did I cry because of what I heard outside? I began to guess what was going on. Bai Zioxu nodded and then shook her head hesitantly, not knowing what to say. My father is a businessman, so I don't have to worry about money. I told her there was no need to worry about household chores. There were people in the house who would take care of the cooking and cleaning. When Yan and Bai Zioxu were trying to hide something, I didn't immediately understand what exactly he was drawing there, but his expression didn't change at all. It turns out it was something else entirely. I looked at her hopefully. Bai Zioxu, do you want to go to high school with me? I don't want to, she replied. I was stunned. Why, did she really still hate me that much? Bai Zioxu shook her head. I'm afraid I'll be bullied at school. In reality, I knew it wasn't the bullying that was the problem, but Yi Fan and the white moon that had settled in her heart. Every time Lin Yuking rejected me, Bai Zioxu bore the brunt. She blamed herself, hurt herself, endured the coldness and alienation. She lived in a state of constant stress and didn't want to go through that hell again. Don't be afraid, I smiled and stroked her soft hair. Bai Zioxu shuddered. Her hair was so pliable. Was I trying to comfort her, or was I just trying to use her? Bai Zioxu was confused. She sensed how different I was from the Yi Fan she knew in her previous life. But she didn't dare risk it, betting that I'd truly fallen out of love with Lin Yuking. She was afraid that she would be trampled again, turning into a miserable little pet. She whispered, Yi Fan, can you let me go? My face turned serious for a moment. What happened? Are you afraid of me? Don't worry, I added, I'm good to you. You're still young, you have your whole life ahead of you, and school is a new experience. Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. Just let me show you a little kindness. It was simple. I didn't promise her the moon, but my voice sounded reassuring, though it still lacked the genuine warmth she was accustomed to. This was something Bai Zioxu had never heard me say in her previous life. This was the Yi Fan she had dreamed of, unattainable and desirable. She didn't know what to answer, as if she had lost the power of speech and couldn't control her thoughts. Bai Zioxu's condition improved rapidly and she was soon discharged. She was left with only minor wounds on her legs, which required her to temporarily use crutches. Although walking on crutches was uncomfortable, I was always there to support her. She quickly got used to this assistance and obediently followed me to that very apartment. I decided Yi Yun would be more convenient for school commutes, so I bought a small apartment there, about 300 square feet. It's in a prestigious residential complex, and the purchase cost me 20 million yuan. I renovated it, creating a spacious bedroom. Last time I put her in a cramped closet, but this time I prepared everything to the highest standard. The room turned out to be even bigger than my own. I bought a new bed and bed linen. Even before she arrived, I prepared all the necessary clothes and things so that she would not have to worry about anything. On the way home, Bai Zioxu gradually got used to the surroundings, but upon entering the apartment, I saw how she involuntarily tried to start cleaning, having become accustomed to the Spartan conditions of her previous home. I gently grabbed her hand. You're a guest here, you don't need to clean anything. I'm the one who made a mess here. Bai Zioxu looked at me, and a hint of warmth flashed in her eyes. The next day, I called her personal driver and ordered him to take us to school. The driver was taken aback. This was the first time in 2.5 years that the young gentleman, that is, me, was getting ready for school. I used to walk because it was less than 2 kilometers to school, and I liked it. The driver hesitated, and I barked, "Didn't you hear what I said?" I hung up the phone and looked at Bai Zioxu. Let's go to school. I'll make arrangements with the teacher, and once you finish your studies, I'll formalize your documents. But my legs aren't completely healed yet, she answered uncertainly. At this moment, Bai Zioxu noticed that I was carrying a heavy school bag. The bag was pink. I'd never worn a backpack before, but it was worth the effort. Bai Zioxu didn't argue anymore. I carefully helped her into the car, and the driver, looking in the rearview mirror, wide-eyed. He seemed shocked. Did his master, really care about this girl? We drove extremely carefully. Thank you, Yi Fan, Bai Zioxu said sincerely. I was discouraged. Was this really the first time she'd seen the real me? I felt embarrassed, my ears turning red. The driver seemed to be starting to doubt the reality of what was happening. He was used to me behaving coldly, almost like with a dog, and then there was such a change. What is she thinking about? We sit next to each other, and I deliberately closed the distance. It seemed to me that there was not enough space, and I continued to stay close to her. Bai Zioxu stared at me, frozen. I was a little nervous, afraid that something would happen to her, so I tried to get closer. I decided that if anything went wrong, I had to protect her first. The driver tried to keep his cool, looking out the window. He appeared calm, though the situation was clearly unsettling him. I was wearing a yellow sweater, my face looked pale. I was silent, staring out the car window. We continued driving without exchanging a word. I continued to look out the window, watching the landscape pass by. In the glass's reflection, I saw Bai Zioxu. Her gaze was filled with a kind of piercing tenderness and vulnerability. My heart sank, but the journey only took a couple of minutes. 5 minutes later we arrived. I opened the door and stepped out, trying to move as carefully as possible to help her. It was quiet all around. Classes had already begun. I hugged Bai Xiaoxu carefully. She clearly hadn't expected such tenderness from me. Her anxiety began to gradually subside as we approached the homeroom teacher's office. I knocked. From inside came the voice of Yang Jai, our bald teacher. He stared at me in bewilderment, clearly not expecting to see that I had come, and not alone, but with a girl. Bai Xiaoxu immediately recognized Yang Jai. She had seen him when she had hopelessly stalked me at school in her previous life. "Hello, teacher," she said quietly. Bai Xiaoxu greeted the teacher very politely when we entered. I took the initiative and broke the silence. "Teacher, this is Bai Xiaoxu. I want her to enroll in our class this semester. Please help me with the paperwork." After that, I led her to class. Even though it was already midday, the senior hallway was silent. I confidently pushed open the classroom door, not even waiting for the bell. The creaking of the door instantly drew the entire class's gaze to us. Si Jai, sitting in the back, widened his eyes. He was shocked that I looked perfectly healthy and normal. Lin Yuking didn't even look up from her textbook. The atmosphere was tense. Previously, if I'd shown up in such a situation, I would have started making excuses, but today was different. I just showed up for class. Confusion reigned in the classroom. Bai Xiaoxu, leaning on her crutch, quietly whispered, "I can handle it myself." These words caused her classmates to whisper, "Who am I speaking so softly to?" Lin Yuking finally looked up. She saw that my tone was completely unusual. She had never heard such warmth from me. I wanted to go ahead, but she insisted on going on her own. I saw how hard she was trying and didn't want to stop her. At that moment, everyone in the class could see the girl behind me. Her soft hair fell over her shoulders, her pale face looked very delicate, and her eyes were somehow fragile. Even the bandage on her leg only emphasized her vulnerability, evoking a mixture of sympathy and admiration in those around her. Many of the boys in the class couldn't help but compare her to Lin Yuking. Some thought she was simply feigning weakness, but the overall impression was different. She exuded sincerity. I simply followed her, not even sparing Lin Yuking a glance. "Hey, Yuking," I heard out of the corner of my ear. Su Ran patted Lin Yuking on the shoulder. "Yi Fan didn't even glance at you today. She wasn't there yesterday, and today this." Lin Yuking gritted her teeth, feeling jealousy boiling up inside her. She didn't understand what was happening to her. Why didn't she come up to me? Her pride wouldn't let her admit her feelings, even when she saw me with someone else. She tried to return to the math, but the lines in the book were blurring. Solving problems used to be easy for her, but now her thoughts were preoccupied only with me. My mind was focused solely on Bai Xiaoxu. I escorted her to the back of the classroom. As Zai Jai passed by, he couldn't help but whisper, "Boss, is this your future bride?" Bai Xiaoxu blushed, and I was stunned by such directness. To stop the rumors, I sternly replied, "What are you talking about? Do you want to get into trouble?" Zai Jai immediately fell silent. I understood that everyone in the class still thought that I was obsessed with Lin Yuking and that this girl was just a temporary infatuation. Bai Xiaoxu felt it too. She smiled bitterly, thinking that I still had feelings for Lin Yuking and that her hopes for something more were just greed. Suddenly we realized that she came to class without anything. No notebooks, no textbooks, no pens. I completely forgot to pack my things, Bai Xiaoxu worried. "After you saved me, I was completely out of my mind." I quickly reassured her, "Don't worry, I'll share mine for now." I began unpacking my bag, including the new pink notebook I'd bought especially for her. "I'm sorry it happened this way," I began to fuss, trying to apologize for my haste. Bai Xiaoxu watched in amazement as I took out item after item, taking care of every little detail. She started to apologize to me, but I gently stopped her. "Stop, it's okay, there's no need to apologize." I took a pink thermos and a mug out of my bag. Girls need to drink more warm water. I gave her the pink bag with all the accessories, and Bai Xiaoxu was amazed by my thoughtfulness. She didn't expect me to prepare so thoroughly for everything except, perhaps, the textbooks themselves. Before, she cared about me, but now it was the other way around, and this feeling of caring was something completely new for her. She never thought she could experience this, to feel valued and protected. Meanwhile, the lesson began, and the teacher called the new student to introduce herself to the whole class. Bai Xiaoxu tried to stand up, but I gently touched her shoulder. "I'll help you get to the stage, don't lean on the desks," I said quietly. A deathly silence fell over the classroom. My words struck everyone like a bolt from the blue. Lin Yuking turned around abruptly, unable to believe her ears. Was I really no longer hers? I slowly led Bai Xiaoxu to the board. Lin Yuking felt her insides clench with burning jealousy. She tried her best to convince herself that she didn't care, but she couldn't concentrate on her studies. Walk slower, your leg still hurts, I reminded Bai Xiaoxu. She looked at me, seeing that I was genuinely worried. She wanted to hurry so as not to waste the class's time, but I could see how much pain she was in. Without thinking, I picked her up. Bai Xiaoxu flushed like a poppy. Yi Fan, what are you doing? Seemed to be red in her gaze as the entire class watched us with their mouths open. Lin Yuking felt panic rising in her. For the first time in forever, I ignored her existence and chose someone else. I turned to teacher Yang Jai. Teacher, she is injured. I am just helping her so as not to waste the lesson time. Yan Jai was clearly dissatisfied with this behavior. You're a high school student. Is it proper to treat a girl like that? His words sounded sarcastic, but I wasn't going to make excuses. I just smiled back, feeling that old Jan had overstepped his bounds. We are friends, teacher, and we live under the same roof now, so there is nothing wrong with that, I replied. Bai Xiaoxu was afraid that my words would lead to trouble, and tried to explain that it was just me helping a friend. She knew my statement had sounded too blunt and felt as if the whole world had come crashing down on her. It was a look full of jealousy directed at me, almost like a future wife's. Bai Xiaoxu listened attentively to my explanation. Only now have I clarified the situation with the letter. It turns out that she and Yi Fan are brother and sister, just with different surnames, probably distant relatives. No wonder I've never seen them together before. Lin Yuking also heard this confession. I was wary at first, but now I can breathe a sigh of relief. Since they're only related, everything's fine. Yi Fan has been loyal to Lin Yuking for so long. He used to run after her like a faithful dog. Could he have cooled off so quickly? Perhaps he simply decided to give his sister some attention today, which is why he was uncharacteristically slow. I was used to seeing Yi Fan being affectionate only with Lin Yuking. Now his behavior toward another girl shocked me, but I pushed aside the unnecessary thoughts. Lin Yuking thinks too highly of herself. It's not worth getting involved in her games. Stop wasting time thinking, focus on your studies. Bai Xiaoxu, trying to ease the tension, began a formal introduction. My name is Bai Xiaoxu. If you're having trouble, you can call me Xiao Zhu, she added. No one was paying much attention. Everyone was busy assessing her appearance. Her face had an innocent, childlike grace that instantly caught the boys' attention. Her appearance was a revelation to them, who even thought about studying when such a beauty appeared in the classroom. As soon as she returned to her seat, I decided to take action. I placed my book in front of Bai Xiaoxu. She picked up my math textbook, which looked brand new, as if it had just been bought yesterday. There were no notes on the pages, not even my name. Everything was pristine. Bai Xiaoxu smiled faintly. It seemed my poor knowledge of mathematics had become obvious to her. She placed the book between us and gently offered, if you have any questions you don't understand, you can ask me. Her tone was sincere and very kind. I propped my head on my hand, watching her. Her eyes held the same concern Kian had spoken of. None of my classmates had ever treated me with such seriousness. Recalling the blank pages of her textbook, Bai Xiaoxu probably realized my answers in class seemed absurd. She looked at me questioningly, as if to say, what have I been doing all this time? Our class teacher, Yang Jai, standing there with a textbook in his hands, was clearly displeased. He shot me an angry look. He was irritated that not only was I not studying, but I was also distracting others. I'll explain everything to you after class, Bai Xiaoxu whispered so quietly that only the two of us could hear. I nodded, agreeing to listen to her. The lesson dragged on endlessly, accompanied by a machine gun barrage of words from the teacher. Finally, the bell rang. Yang Jai left and I could finally breathe freely. I turned my attention to Bai Xiaoxu, but she suddenly lay down on the desk. She lowered her head, hiding her face. I saw her hands clasped over her stomach, her brows furrowed in pain. Her forehead was cold, her legs stretched out under the desk. Oh no, I realized what was happening. After the transformation, I completely forgot that she might be on her period today. She had nothing with her, and she was simply trying to endure the pain. I checked my notes in my notebook. Everything was correct. The schedule matched. I pulled out the pink mug I'd prepared earlier from my bag. Bai Xiaoxu, suppressing a grimace of pain, whispered. She didn't know what I had prepared for her. I didn't drink it myself, but simply took a mug of warm water. I reached into the drawer for my things, but hesitated for a second. Bai Xiaoxu didn't seem to even realize what was happening. At the same time, Lin Yuking also looked unwell. Su Ran fussed around her worriedly. "Are you okay?" he asked. Lin Yuking, as usual, feigned pride in her response. She deliberately sat there so everyone could see how miserable she was. I don't know if it was an act, but she clearly wanted to elicit pity. I only glanced at her briefly. I tore open a packet of brown sugar and stirred it into warm water. The temperature was perfect. Lin Yuking immediately extended her hand. "Yi Fan, give it to me." She was used to me always helping her before, and she was sure the water was meant for her. I pulled away. "That's not for you," I snapped. Lin Yuking clearly had her own problems, but right now I had other priorities. "I have a sore throat, can't I help my classmate?" she protested. I didn't argue. "You have a boyfriend, why are you asking me for sugar water?" My voice was louder than I intended, attracting the attention of the entire class. Bai Xiaoxu looked up in surprise. Rumors began to spread around the class. Classmates whispered, "Did Lin Yuking and I really have a fight?" Su Ran was furious. "Can't you behave like a gentleman? Stop yelling at that girl." He couldn't accept the fact that I had changed, but I didn't care. I turned and walked over to the back of the class where Bai Xiaoxu was sitting. I handed her a pink mug with a smile. "Drink this, it's water with brown sugar, just the right temperature." She took the mug, her expression softening. She was clearly confused. After all, everyone knows I've always cared about Lin Yuking. Why this sudden change? "Do you want me to feed you?" I asked, smiling. Bai Xiaoxu blushed, noticing the eyes on us. Her face flushed red. "No thanks, I can handle it myself," she muttered. She panicked and picked up the mug and began drinking in small sips. Lin Yuking watched from the sidelines. It was clear her heart was broken. It was the first time she'd felt so humiliated in front of the entire class. Su Ran looked at her with bitter sympathy. She found the situation unbearably painful, but I just wanted to take care of someone I truly cared about. The day flew by. After school, I called Siki. She was still wary after the morning's events, but gradually her anger gave way to curiosity. I knew that after a full day at school, I shouldn't just disappear. "Zio Zhu, thanks for helping me with my homework," I said as we boarded the bus. "You're welcome, it's no trouble for me," she replied. I bought her food from the cafeteria so she wouldn't go hungry. I helped her collect all her textbooks and notebooks. I even made sure she had warm water. She wiped her forehead with a napkin, looking at me with surprise. She was beginning to get used to my new way of caring. The past was in the past. I knew how terrible Yi Fan had been in that other life, and I didn't want to repeat. Now, in this world, I tried to be different. My gaze, directed at her, was warm and sincere. The walk home seemed too short. "Bai Xiaoxu, can you look at me now?" I asked. Her ears turned red and she met my gaze. I couldn't resist. "Zio Zhu, why are you so beautiful? I could look at you forever." I gently touched her chin and she timidly took my hand. She lightly poked me on the cheek. "Yi Fan, can you stop saying such things?" "I'm just telling the truth," I replied. "Is telling the truth a crime?" Bai Xiaoxu's face flushed with embarrassment. Against her fair skin, the blush looked especially beautiful. How could she not notice? She was making me quite nervous. I whispered to her, "Could you speak more quietly? We're not alone." The poor driver seemed on the verge of tears from our conversation. At that moment, I realized I was still just a normal guy. The car stopped in front of the house. The driver couldn't bear it any longer and muttered, "Young master, we're here." It was clearly not easy for him to endure this ordeal, being the third wheel. I got out of the car and helped Bai Xiaoxu out. I slowly helped her out, supporting her by the elbow. The driver sighed deeply, watching us. He clearly hoped that this would be the end of it all and he could finally leave. He was already reaching for the control panel to start the engine, but I beat him to it. "Who gave you permission to leave?" I asked, feeling Siki, the driver, visibly tense up. "Hasn't his shift ended yet? Go and help me move the things into the apartment," I commanded. Bai Xiaoxu stood by the side, watching me command the driver. Wasn't I supposed to be doing all this? I felt like my legs were fine now, and I was ready to handle it myself. Bai Xiaoxu wanted to say something, but I stopped her with a look. I continued to support her, giving her a gentle smile. "If you're tired, just rest," I told her. The driver standing next to me suddenly seethed with indignation. "Why are you making her suffer? My job is just to drive you," he protested. He clearly didn't like the way I was bossing people around, even if it was within the bounds of politeness. "You can't make me do any other work," the driver finally plucked up the courage. His voice grew louder and he stopped hiding his displeasure. I heard it all. "Okay," I replied, "then let's revisit old debts. Do you think I've forgotten about those gifts you grabbed earlier?" The driver froze, not understanding what I was talking about. He'd settled in quite nicely over the past 2.5 years. "You got your salary, bonuses, and a bunch of extras. All told, it came to about 400,000. Not bad for just turning the wheel, right?" "Do you want me to call your dad and discuss your progress?" I asked. The driver immediately cooled down and turned pale. He started making excuses, muttering something unintelligible, just so that I wouldn't report his machinations to my father. His views on life were peculiar, but I did not want to continue this argument in that tone. I was a little confused. My goal after reincarnation was to give Bai Xiaoxu all the happiness she had been deprived of. I wasn't going to let trivialities derail me. If I use my position for stupid squabbles, I will feel like a worthless person. Catching Bai Xiaoxu's gaze, I felt a strange sense of relief. I gently touched her shoulder, reassuring us both. "Don't think you know me well. For a simpleton like me, your advice is just what I need. You're wonderful," I told her. I decided to explain my position to her seriously so that she wouldn't consider herself waste or anything like that. "You judge people by their appearance, but I'm sure you're capable of anything. You're an excellent student, and I'm just a scumbag trying to improve under your leadership. If you're useless, then what am I?" Bai Xiaoxu merely shook her head. I felt sorry for her, but I was glad I knew how to comfort her. In the eyes of my future wife, I was no longer useless. This was the highest recognition. The driver, realizing there was no point in arguing, set to work diligently. "Young master, the apartment is ready. May I go?" he asked, breathing heavily. He gave it his all to finish faster. I could see him sweating from the effort. Entering the apartment, I appreciated the cleanliness. This guy had done a great job cleaning. "Okay, since we're done, take us to Nanyang Shopping Center," I commanded. "But sir, it's already late," he objected. "What are you doing there?" the driver grumbled, clearly not wanting to go south, but I didn't care what he thought. I gave him a cold look. "Want a drink?" I asked, and he obediently got behind the wheel again. The car started again. "Xiaozu, let's go," I said. "I want to buy you something," I added, seeing her confusion. "Do you need to buy this?" she asked. Of course, we're not just going to the mall. Besides clothes, we needed a smartphone to stay in touch. Bai Xiaoxu thought about it, as her old phone had long since broken. She was used to being indebted, but there was no point in refusing. The driver, gritting his teeth, prepared for the journey. "How do you get a driver to work overtime? Just order them." Hearing my tone, he immediately fell silent. He couldn't refuse me. Bai Xiaoxu finally agreed. When we got into the car, she thanked the driver. He glanced at me in the mirror, saw my cold gaze, and immediately wilted. The driver's eyes were red. He was clearly squeezed like a lemon. I began to discuss the benefits of overtime for the national economy, either to cheer him up or to teach him a lesson. Bai Xiaoxu, hearing my words, was genuinely surprised. I was touched that even in this world there are people dedicated to their work. The driver seemed to be the best of his kind. "What about me? Who am I in this game?" The driver mentally cursed everything in the world, but didn't show it. "Mr. Yifan is the best. He always helps those in need and sponsors orphanages." He began to sing his praises, trying to appease me. I just chuckled. Although the driver was clearly being hypocritical, he tried to play his role to the end. Bai Xiaoxu, listening to him, looked at me with new admiration. She didn't expect me to be so kind. "I was wrong about you before," she admitted. "In what way exactly?" I asked, enjoying the moment. "You've always been very good," she replied. The driver behind the wheel seemed ready to die of envy. "We finally arrived. Nanyang Shopping Mall, get out," the driver growled. I gently took Bai Xiaoxu's hand and led her inside. It was the largest shopping mall in the city, a true shopping paradise with world-class brands. Sure, the prices there were exorbitant, but for me, the head of a large company, they were mere pennies. However, Bai Xiaoxu still didn't dare spend my money. Bai Xiaoxu looked visibly nervous as she looked at the price tags. "Yifan, let's get out of here. Everything here is way too expensive. A regular sweater costs 900 yuan, that's a fortune for a student." She was frightened, and I remembered the last time I bought her things. Even if I bought her a complete wardrobe, it wouldn't have been worth even half the price they were asking for a single item here. even though the clothes looked no different from more affordable options. Last time I bought her so much stuff she could barely carry it. Bai Zioxu was as happy as a little rabbit and thanked me constantly, even though I felt like I hadn't done enough. Behind us, the driver, laden with bags, sighed heavily. His face expressed extreme irritation. It looked like he'd eaten his fill of dog food today. What can I do? I really wanted to spoil Bai Zioxu. While she stared at the display case, mesmerized, I simply nodded to the salesperson, buying the dress without even checking the price. Because of this, they even closed the store's entrance for 10 minutes to ensure our privacy. I packed over 20 items of clothing, leaving the entire burden of shopping on the shoulders of the driver. He thought his job was limited to school trips. He was clearly counting on his 10,000 yuan salary and a comfortable life, but seeing me throw money around left him shocked. He simply didn't understand the lifestyle of a truly rich person, and I didn't care. Bai Zioxu watched with embarrassment as I bought her everything, and the driver's glare only added to the comical atmosphere. I couldn't help but laugh. See, I said to her, the girl I like, even at a moment like this, isn't thinking about herself, but about me not overspending. Isn't that wonderful? I was completely serious. If I like someone, I'll buy them whatever they want, and the bags are the driver's problem. Nothing bad will happen. Bai Zioxu was at a loss, but my words gave her pause. The driver looked ready to explode from exhaustion and envy. But he'll have to keep working. Gradually, he'll get used to working hard. Meanwhile, other customers have arrived at the store. It was a corpulent middle-aged man accompanied by a striking woman. They twirled around a mannequin while the saleswoman enthusiastically praised a purple dress. The dress was Western style, richly embellished with diamonds. The woman smiled contentedly, expecting her husband to buy her this luxury. "Darling, buy it for me, I'll look stunning in it," she exclaimed capriciously. Her shrill voice was so loud that even the driver next to her winced. I felt a slight sense of disgust at the scene. It must have been evident on my face, which immediately caught their attention. "Who are you? This place reeks of poverty," the woman snorted, rolling her eyes demonstratively as she took in my simple appearance. "Darling, he's annoying me, teach him a lesson," she hissed, pointing her finger at me. I was perplexed. What did the driver and I have to do with this? But this insolent fellow decided to turn his attention to us. He roughly pushed the woman aside and walked toward Bai Zioxu, his gait dismissive. "What are you doing here, little one? These clothes aren't for the likes of you. Wanna follow in your boyfriend's footsteps?" He grinned, looking at me. "I can buy you something tastier than this puppy." I was shocked by his behavior. An old man of 40 or 50 was trying to hit on a girl I cared about, using disgusting tactics. He called himself brother at his age when he was old enough to be her father. Bai Zioxu frowned. I felt anger boiling inside me, but I tried to stay calm. "Listen, your brother will help you with your shopping," the guy continued to insist, ignoring his companion. The woman who had been standing next to him ran up in a rage. "Darling, how can you trade me for that girl? I'm much prettier." I was furious but decided not to attack first. The man demonstratively pulled a wad of cash out of his pocket. "Just take it and get lost, you're annoying me," he snapped, throwing money at the woman. She eagerly rushed to collect the bills from the floor. Having received her share of humiliation, the woman became quiet, and the man turned back to Bai Zioxu. I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped forward, shielding Bai Zioxu with my body. "You better leave while I'm being polite," I said through gritted teeth. "This girl is with me, and you better not test my patience." The man changed his tone. He noticed my school uniform and at first thought I was nobody, but looking at my face, he had his doubts. I didn't hesitate. My eyes were glowing, and even the driver behind me seemed to perk up. "Young master, are you planning to show off your strength?" the driver whispered. I ignored him, focusing on my opponent. "You can bully anyone you want," I told the man, "but if you lay a finger on my classmate, you'll regret it bitterly." "You're just a schoolboy, you think you can threaten me?" he roared, turning purple with rage. I chuckled. "Do you know who I am? I'm Yi Fan, and that's the last thing you'll hear before you regret your words." He laughed. "Yi Fan, you think you're a hero from a novel? Get out before I call security." I didn't want a scandal that would affect my reputation, so I decided to settle the issue with money. "Waiter, pack up everything you have here. I'm taking it all," I said, taking out my bank card. The salesman, stunned, added up the sum. "That's 9,870,000 yuan. Are you sure?" "Pay," I replied. "If you can afford it, then pay." The card worked instantly. The salesman froze, unsure how to react. The driver stood there with his mouth open, 9 million written off in a second. At that moment, even the school walls seemed cold and distant to me, because now I was the master of the situation.